Hello and welcome to another edition of Momentum. I'm your host, John Bricado. Our first guest is Sarah Lee, Assistant Clinical Professor and Director of Undergraduate Studies in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
I understand that your colleague and you, Vamitra White, actually just won an NSF Includes grant, and I thought we might begin with you telling us about that grant and the type of work that it's going to fund.
Okay, well, we were awarded the grant in November 2016. It's part of the National Science Foundation's Includes project, which is intended to bring the STEM discipline to underrepresented groups across the country. So not just computing, which is what our project is focused on, but other STEM subjects as well. We decided in our proposal to focus on computing for women in Mississippi. I know from being a faculty member in computer science and software engineering that women are largely underrepresented in that field. I also know from my career in industry that women are largely underrepresented. So we decided to focus on that area. And our project is called the Mississippi Alliance for Women in Computing.
Okay, all right. And I understand that that's a fairly selective process. So how many Includes grants were
there were
total?
Several hundred that were submitted, and this was the first round for this. This was a new program at NSF, and there were 37 selected out of the country. So we were very, very happy to bring that here to Mississippi.
That's impressive. And how does this align with other initiatives like Code Mississippi? I know that's another organization.
Right, we work really closely with them. I mean, that organization was spawned from the Innovate Mississippi, which is an organization based in Jackson, Mississippi, and their objectives are to bring coding and computer science to all of the students or all of the young people in the state of Mississippi. Certainly there's a lot of underrepresented groups, not just women, in this state. So our efforts are focused on women, but we do work closely with them.
So what might be special about coding that makes it a fertile area for innovation and diversity of a number of underrepresented groups?
Well, there's a lot of design that's involved with building computing systems, and if we only have one segment of the population that's at the table designing the systems and the applications of tomorrow, then we're missing out on a large amount of the population. 48% of our public school children in the state of Mississippi are female, and if we're not growing that segment of the population on the computing pathway, then there's a lot of creativity and ideas from their perspective that we'll miss out on in the computing profession.
And I imagine an effort like this is good for recruitment, both into computer science as a field, but also into computer science at Mississippi State. Is that something that I guess you've thought about in terms of how you want to approach this?
Well, absolutely. We have some programs that are based at Mississippi State, but with the Includes project that we have being a collective alliance, the goal is to involve people across the state, and then ultimately, in a later phase, make this more of a southern regional project. We want these types of programs that engage women in computing all across the state, not just at Mississippi State. And we had a lot of success this summer in spawning those. And I also work closely with the College of Education. We've been offering teacher professional development in the summers and are working to develop some courses for pre-service teachers that hopefully will get more computer science into the classrooms in the state of Mississippi. Okay. So the more students that are exposed, and the more who potentially will become engaged and want to persist on the pathway. And like I said, 48% of the public school children in the state are female.
Okay. How does that translate to numbers in computer science at Mississippi State? I mean, what's the percentage in terms of male versus female in computer science?
I believe that we are around 12 to 15% now in our two majors, computer science and software engineering, which has grown a lot since I joined the faculty in 2011. And I think that's in part to a lot of the outreach and in-reach programs that we've put in place to support women along the computing pathway.
Sure. Do you know how that compares nationally? Like, what are the numbers like nationally?
I don't know if I can quote a statistic of, you know, the women in computing majors to you, but I know that they're largely underrepresented in the computing
Still a growth area for sure.
Yes.
Well, Sarah, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
What if you could be part of one of the top engineering schools in the nation without ever leaving the coast? Well, now you can. Mississippi State's collaboration with Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College allows you to earn core credits while pursuing a 4-year degree in mechanical or electrical engineering, all in the same location. And with classes taught by MSU professors, the world-renowned education you couldn't find anywhere else is now in your own backyard. To learn more about this great opportunity, visit us online.
Imagine a helmet so protective that it transforms the safety of the game. We are at Mississippi State University, where we ring true. When you're the best, everyone wants to see what you'll do next. At Mississippi State University, our team of world-class rocket engineers is venturing beyond boundaries, building rockets like none before. We're launching a new era of space exploration. We've developed cutting-edge technology that's helping us build a rocket that can travel at 4 times the speed of sound. Fast? Yes, but more importantly, revolutionary. For you and for a space program that produces many of the conveniences we enjoy today. We're shaping your life in ways you never dreamed. What's next? Watch us and see.
Welcome back. My second guest is Ed Dechert, Assessment Coordinator with the Office of Institutional Research and Effectiveness here at Mississippi State. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I understand you recently returned from leading a study abroad program with engineering students in Europe. Why don't you tell us about that trip?
Sure. The class is technical writing for engineers, and all the engineering majors here at State have to take it. And so I guess basically the deal was it was a regular 5-week summer class with 18 engineering students from here in Starkville, and we just did the class in Munich. So the class itself is mostly writing. They do some oral communication, so they do a couple presentations, a handful of documents, and a lot of in-class writing and communication exercises. The part about it that is, I guess, unique to the fact that we did it in Munich was that we changed some of these assignments to actually fit in with the fact that we were in Germany and in Munich specifically. So we did a few presentations that we wouldn't have technically done, or we wouldn't have done here in Starkville. We did a few, I guess, field trips, you might call them, a couple of them were actually related to engineering. A couple of them were more cultural type experiences. We went to the Dachau Holocaust Memorial, which is right outside of Munich. We took a bike tour around Munich, so all 18 of us got on bikes and with a tour guide rode around Munich, and we did that the first day that everybody was there, and so it was good because we got to see a lot of Munich, and they got to sort of get familiar with how the city works and see some things that they might want to go back to and see later on. In terms of the engineering field trips or group excursions, whatever we want to call them, we went to one of the big breweries in Munich, which brewing is a big industry in Germany and especially in Munich. So we went to one of the big breweries and we got to do a real intensive tour through all the different parts of the brewery and see how the beer is manufactured, how it's packaged, how they run all of these systems that surprisingly were pretty automated. And then the other group tour that we went that was engineering related is we went to the BMW Museum and BMW World, I think they call it. So we got to do a pretty also intensive, about a 2-hour-long tour of the BMW factory from the point where they are stamping out the metal frames to getting all of that spot welded, painting, and on through the assembly line and where they actually do testing. And that was one of my favorite things that we did. And I think the students tended to like it too. They had a lot of questions, and I think they enjoyed the experience pretty good bit.
So thinking about it overall, I mean, what does a study abroad program like this provide for students? What would you say? What do they get out of it?
Well, I think they get a lot of different things out of it, and it's funny enough, at the end of the class, one of the things that I had the students do, actually I did at the beginning of the class and at the end, I had them talk about what they wanted to get out of the class, and in terms of the actual class, but then in terms of being in Munich. And at the end, we sort of revisited. So I asked them to kind of look back on the 5 weeks that you spent. What did you feel like you got out of the class? How is that going to be useful to you? And specifically, what do you think you got out of being here in Munich? And some of the responses, a lot of people said that, well, it sort of put me out of my comfort zone. And so, I've never really done a lot of traveling. A lot of the students had never been abroad before. And none of them had been to Germany before, or very few of them had been to Germany before. So I think it got them to sort of get out of their comfort zone and deal with situations and takes, a class they would have taken here in an unfamiliar setting. So things like public transportation, was one of the things that they had to figure out. I think a couple of the other students mentioned things that were related to actual engineering in Germany, and the fact there was one civil engineer that mentioned that it was really nice to see how public transportation worked, because the transportation system in Munich was fairly easy to use and on time. I mean, Germans have a reputation for being on time and following the rules, and that was true. And so he was like, it was really good to see as a civil engineer how their public transportation worked and how well it worked. I think there was another student that had specific, they like specific things about seeing the way efficiency works in Germany, from the way the automation works in some of the factories that we went to, but then also in terms of things like recycling. They recycle everything, and so they're very much aware of how things can work more efficiently, that they might not be used to seeing in a place like Starkville, that is a much smaller city. There's maybe less of a focus on some of the things that we saw in Munich.
So the other side of that, what do faculty get out of something like this? What did you yourself get out of this?
Well, I think a lot of things. Obviously, it's fun to go to another place you've never been to. It was interesting to go to another country and teach the class and sort of get to feel like you actually lived there. I mean, it was 5 weeks, but it was you had to do things like figure out transportation and get to places that you might not necessarily on vacation. And so that was nice, but it was also in some ways nice to be, the class worked differently because we were all together. We stayed at the same hotel. We did dinners and stuff together. We did on the field trips that we went to together. You don't really get that in a regular class here, and that was kind of fun to be a group, more so than you might have a chance to be in the regular semester.
Right. Well, Ed, it's been great speaking with you. Welcome back, and thanks for being here.
Thanks.
That's all we have time for today. Remember, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MSU Engineering. Thanks for being with us.